The New York Times writes, leaderless and exposed, Russia's Wagner faces an uncertain future. Its leader is officially dead, as is its founding commander. President Vladimir V Putin of Russia is claiming it doesn't exist. Wagner, the once powerful Russian private military company that fell out of favor with the Kremlin after an aborted mutiny in June, has been cast into even greater uncertainty since Wednesday, when its leader, Yevgeny Prigozhin, died in a plane crash. The Russian authorities said Sunday that DNA tests, conducted on bodies recovered from the site in the Tver region, confirmed that Mr. Prigozhin and 9 other people listed on the plane's manifest had died in the suspicious crash. The Washington Post writes, Biden's course for U.S. on trade breaks with Clinton and Obama. President Biden is making it clear that the United States' rejection of full-throttle globalization during the Trump administration was no aberration, as he continues a remarkable break with decades of trade policy that spanned both Republican and Democratic administrations. Blending a tough-on-China stance with lavish federal subsidies for favored industries, the president is reshaping the U.S. approach to cross-border commerce to focus on the needs of Americans as workers rather than consumers. USA Today writes, Idalia has infernal potential, as storm takes aim at Florida, forecaster warns. Tropical storm Idalia formed Sunday in the Gulf of Mexico amid warnings it could slam across Florida's shores as a hurricane, dropping up to 18 inches of rain on a region battered less than a year ago by historic Hurricane Ian. Ryan Truchellet, chief meteorologist at Florida-based WeatherTiger, says there are warning signals that Idalia could reach major hurricane intensity minus sustained winds of at least 111 miles per hour for Category 3 status minus, and that it would be naive to ignore them. Los Angeles Times writes, their win is a win for all of us. El Segundo takes Little League World Series title. With the game tied in the last inning, El Segundo's leading home run hitter Luis Lapp had a good feeling as he stepped to the plate. I just knew it was gone even before the ball hit the bat, Lapp said shortly after knocking the ball clear across the left field wall to win the Little League World Series on Sunday against Pabao Little League of Willemstad, Curaçao, in Williamsport, PA. In El Segundo, hundreds of fans who had jammed into downtown's Rock and Brews sports bar to watch the game on big-screen TVs erupted in cheers, high-fived one another and sang, "We are the champions," as the popular anthem blasted from the bar's speakers. They continued the celebration in the streets as others poured out of neighboring bars and restaurants. Chicago Tribune writes, the Port of Chicago is not just a scar on the city's shoreline and a threat to the environment. It's a drag on economic growth. Since its inception, the port has been hobbled by shifting trade patterns, the collapse of the city's steel industry, and penny pinching by public and private operators. New York Post writes, NYC anti-migrant rally turns violent at clash with counter-protesters outside Gracie Mansion. Protesters on both sides of the migrant dispute clashed outside Gracie Mansion on Sunday, as dozens of cops tried to keep the raucous crowd under control during the unprecedented crisis engulfing the Big Apple. Some of the more than 100 demonstrators screamed and threw punches at each other at the Upper East Side rally as most bashed City Hall's handling of the crisis while others shouting them down. No migrants on Long Island, a Trump supporter shouted outside the Manhattan home of Mayor Eric Adams. We pay a lot of property taxes. Newsday writes, all of them gone like this. Mourners at services for 4 killed in East Massapequa crash. Many of those gathered at the Harmony Funeral Home on Clarendon Avenue in Brooklyn wiped away tears, hugged and prayed for Patrice Huntley, 60, his children Jeremiah, 10, and Hannah, 13, and his 6-year-old granddaughter, Chantel Solomon. The Denver Post writes, can there be too many drive-thrus? One Colorado city is considering whether to impose a limit. The venerable American ritual of palming a burger while gripping the steering wheel, as grease and ketchup drip onto shirt and lap, could soon face resistance as thick as honey mustard sauce in Golden. Last week, city leaders launched a months-long effort to explore whether this city of 20,000 should limit or even outlaw new drive-through operations in the name of cleaner air and better mobility for pedestrians and cyclists. San Francisco Chronicle writes, there's a major problem with rebates to swap out gas-powered appliances Dems are touting. President Biden and every Democrat on the campaign trail will spend the next year bragging about the Inflation Reduction Act, which they universally tout as the biggest climate action investment in history. You will hear Democrats boast that the IRA, which was signed a year ago, includes $8.8 billion in tax credits and rebates to encourage people to buy energy-saving devices such as heat pumps. BBC News writes Taliban stop female Afghan students leaving country to study in Dubai. After the Taliban shut universities for women, my only hope was to get a scholarship which would help me study abroad, says 20-year-old Afghan student Natkai. Natkai's name has been changed for her own safety. The Taliban have cracked down hard on women who oppose them. Natkai says she kept studying even though there was little chance of her ever attending university in her homeland.